everyone. Shakespeare Live in Arlington has released a March Madness bracket, but instead of it being college teams, it is Shakespeare plays that could be performed this year by Shakespeare Live. Last year, Shakespeare Live Arlington, for their first play, did As You Like It, which I think is a wonderful first play to start off with. They performed it at the Levitt Pavilion. It was free to the whole community. It was a really great show. So now they're thinking about what they're going to do this year. And I don't know exactly how this bracket is going to work. The implication seems to be that we will be able to kind of play along or help figure out what play they want to perform this year or what play they should perform this year. So I figured that I would join in on the madness and make my own selections here with you. Now, just to let you know, for my Shakespeare Live Madness bracket, I'm not going to pick what I think is Shakespeare's greatest play. I'm also not going to pick what I think is my favorite play. Instead, what I'm selecting are the plays that I think would be best performed by Shakespeare Live or would be the best fit for their second performance coming off of As You Like It. So this is me more just sort of playing. If I was the decision maker, this is what I would go with. So let's start over here at the King Lear versus Comedy of Errors, which is a really interesting head-to-head because Comedy of Errors is very light. It's a fluffy play. I heard it once described as it was Shakespeare in his silly goose era, and I think that that's very accurate. Whereas King Lear is notably his most tragic of tragedies. In this case, though, King Lear obviously is the much more critically well-received of his plays between these two. Comedy of Errors is considered an early comedy of his. King Lear arguably is one of his greatest tragedies. However, I'm actually going to go for Comedy of Errors in this one. And my reason why is because I don't know if King Lear would be a good follow-up to As You Like It. I don't know if Arlington is quite ready for King Lear. I think Comedy of Errors, which in my opinion is actually an underappreciated comedy, it's really quite funny. And I think that there's a lot that can be done there. King Lear has been done a lot. It hasn't always been done well. I think King Lear is a very hard tragedy to do. Not saying that Shakespeare Live isn't capable of it. The actors that they have are wonderful. I'm just saying it might be a little heavy. Next up, Coriolanus or Taming of the Shrew. Give me Coriolanus. This one, as far as its epic tragedy type stories, there's a lot to like about Coriolanus. Taming of the Shrew, I don't know. It's a tricky play, particularly towards the end, the way it deals with sexism. I don't know. That one, I like Taming of the Shrew. I've seen some good presentations. In fact, Shakespeare Everywhere in Dallas did a wonderful Taming of the Shrew last year that was done by an all-female cast. And I think that's a nice way to sort of sidestep some of the touchier issues there. So we'll go with Coriolanus. Merchant of Venice versus Romeo and Juliet. Of course, Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet obviously is a crowd pleaser. It is a very, very popular, probably his most popular play. People love seeing it, and I don't think I haven't gotten tired of it. Whereas Merchant of Venice, some of the anti-Semitism, it can be a tricky play like Taming of the Shrew. So we'll step around that one. And also, I just love Romeo and Juliet so much. It's a fun play to do. Tragic, heartbreaking, but fun. Richard II, Troilus and Cressida. I'm going to go with Richard II. This was an easy one for me. A few years ago, I rediscovered Shakespeare's histories, and I I really like his history plays. I didn't think I would, but Richard II to me is just a great play. So yeah, Othello or As You Like It. Didn't we just do As You Like It? We got to go with Othello. We're not doing As You Like It 2 years in a row. Cymbeline or Tempest. I'm not as familiar with Cymbeline. And The Tempest, I'm not the biggest fan. Some people really love The Tempest. But we'll go with The Tempest between Tempest and Cymbeline. If any of you know me, we've got to go with Henry V on Henry V versus Two Gentlemen of Verona. Two Gentlemen of Verona is easily his weakest comedy. I think some of the stuff at the end is a little bit cringy, if you ask me. And while you can see some of the makings of his future great works in Two Gentlemen, Henry V is just a solid historical play. Yeah, I really love that one. Richard III or Love's Labour's Lost. All right, I'm being biased with my histories here. Richard III, it is such a villainous and fun show to do. So I'm going to go with Richard III. Julius Caesar or Merry Wives of Windsor. Julius Caesar. Merry Wives of Windsor, not his best work. Julius Caesar, though, obviously all the kids in the school are studying Julius Caesar, so it would be a no-brainer to present something that the kids are going to be reading and watching in school anyways. But also I think that Julius Caesar is a wonderful play. The character of Brutus, there's a lot to love about that. Macbeth or Measure for Measure. I just saw Shakespeare Dallas last year do a really wonderful Measure for Measure. They had some great actors. It works really well in a small, intimate space. I think it's kind of underappreciated, but I'm going to go with Macbeth. Macbeth is a very tight, kinetic. It moves very quickly. I think Macbeth, if you're introducing someone to Shakespeare for the first time, Macbeth is a great way to go. Titus Andronicus, Midsummer's. I really love A Midsummer's, A Midsummer Night's Dream. It is. I would also put it on my list of maybe first plays to introduce to someone to Shakespeare. It really is hilarious, particularly with the mechanicals and the lovers, their confusion in the forest. It always gets a laugh. I think this is just a fun play. And also, for the same reason that I noped out of King Lear, I'm going to nope out of Titus Andronicus. It is a brutal, violent play. Plus, Shakespeare Dallas is doing it in the fall, so I think we might get a little bit of Titus overload there. It's a lot. I don't know if I would do that one. Okay, this is a tricky category here. Hamlet or Twelfth Night. So we've got his greatest tragedy against his greatest comedy. For the same reason that I was kind of unsure about King Lear. I don't know. Hamlet is a lot. That is a thick play. It's heavy. It's just a lot. Twelfth Night, though, I think is just a lot of fun. It gets performed a lot, but I think Twelfth Night is a good one. And yeah, just a lot of fun going on there. Henry IV Part 1 or All's Well That Ends Well. Give me Henry IV. I don't know if I've seen a bad performance of Henry IV Part 1. The character of Falstaff, Prince Hal, the dynamics between them. It is comedy, it is history, it is a little bit of tragedy. I think that Falstaff is such an amazing character. He is a comedic character that comes back around again to being tragic, whereas Hamlet is the opposite. He is a tragic character that is at times absolutely hilarious. But I would love to see Henry IV Part 1 on the stage, so let's go with that one. Henry VIII or Timon of Athens. Henry VIII is an interesting one to put here on the grid on the brackets, because that was the play that was towards the end of Shakespeare's career. There was cannon fire on stage that set the Globe Theater on fire and burned it down. So part of me leans towards Henry VIII, only if you can get an actual cannon on stage. So we'll say Henry VIII cannon. That's two ends. There we go. So yes, Henry VIII, but get us a cannon. Pericles or Winter's Tale. Give me the character pursued by a bear. I want the Winter's Tale. The Winter's Tale has some wonderful magical moments to it. The bear is interesting. And the time leaps and all that stuff. So I would go with that. Anthony and Cleopatra versus Much Ado About Nothing. Anthony and Cleopatra is a wonderful, wonderful tragedy, but Much Ado About Nothing is the most Jane Austen-y of Shakespeare's plays. I would have to think that Jane Austen, when she was a younger girl, watched Much Ado About Nothing and decided that she would make that her whole personality. It's a great play, and I mean they all are, but I would say Much Ado About Nothing would be a lot of fun. All right, let's get now to the Elizabethan 8. Let's see if we can narrow these down a bit more. We're at the Sonnet 16. Comedy of Errors versus Coriolanus. Comedy of Errors. Romeo and Juliet, Richard II. Okay, this is a hard one for me because personally, Richard II would be... I really would enjoy seeing that. But Romeo and Juliet... Sorry to be basic, but it's good. Othello versus Tempest. I think Othello is stronger. Richard III versus Henry V. Oh, my heart. Let's go Richard III. Let's get some villainy here. Let's see. Julius Caesar, Macbeth. Maybe Macbeth. Twelfth Night, Midsummer Night's Dream. I'm going to go with Midsummer's just because I think Twelfth Night has been done a lot. We've also done Midsummer's a lot, but I think in the Dallas area, I think Twelfth Night has been performed at least 3 times that I recall in the past 2 years. Midsummer's I know was at Shakespeare Dallas a few years ago, but the costuming and all that stuff would be just so much fun. All right, Henry IV, Part 1. Yeah, I know, it'd be nice to get a cannon, but okay. Much Ado for our Elizabethan 8. Okay, let's go now to the semifinals. Comedy of Error versus Romeo and Juliet. Now we're at the point where they're all gold. They're all winners. You can't go wrong here. Let's see. In a surprising turn of events, let's say Comedy of Errors. It's a fun play. Romeo and Juliet is wonderful too, but the people of Arlington will get more than enough opportunities to see Romeo and Juliet. Let's bring them Comedy of Errors. Othello or Richard III? Richard III. Now is the winner of our discontent. Othello is great and villainous. It's a heartbreaker, but I think Richard III would be would be really good. All right, Macbeth or Midsummer's. Both of them are actually pretty tightly plotted plays. Macbeth moves very quickly. Midsummer's moves very quickly. I'm going to say, Shakespeare Dallas just did Macbeth, and I know that shouldn't be our only reason for picking what we pick, but I think Shakespeare Live could do a wonderful Midsummer's. Henry IV, Part 1 versus Much Ado. Oh, okay, this one's tough. I need a drink of coffee to think this one over. Oh. This is tough because I feel like I may be picking the finalist here in this bracket. Henry IV, Part 1, Much Ado. As if you did part 1, you could do part 2 the next year, and then for the final one, do Henry V. You could do that portion of the Henriad. Oh, that would be fun. Much Ado, a wonderful, wonderful romance comedy. Since we just did As You Like It, oh, this is tough. All right, Henry IV. Let's go there. All right, now we're to the final 4. Richard III versus Comedy of Errors. This Comedy of Errors is the Cinderella story here. I know they'll probably just lose in the finals, but I think I personally would rather see Comedy of Errors versus Richard III. Midsummer's versus Henry IV Part 1. I don't know. Midsummer's gets done a lot. I think, going to the finals, Henry IV. This was the most popular play in Shakespeare's own life. We know this because of how many editions of the quartos were printed of Henry IV. That gives us some indication of the popularity of it. All right, Comedy of Errors versus Henry IV Part 1. This is definitely a David and Goliath story, although in this case, the bigger dog is probably going to win this fight. Our champion, there we go. Henry IV. Give me John Falstaff. Give me Prince Hal. Give me, Madam Quickly and the Boar's Head Tavern. I think that would be a great follow-up to As You Like It. Although Comedy of Errors, his early comedy, but Shakespeare really flexes on that one. A surprising ascension of Comedy of Errors, but in the end, Henry IV Part 1 has to win it. So there we go. There is my very quick, sort of random, on-the-spot analysis of these plays and which one I think Shakespeare Live at Arlington should perform this year. So, Shakespeare Live, if you are watching this, contact me, talk to me. I'm happy to advise, or I'll just show you my bracket and let you know that this is the way you should go. This is it right here. So anyway, you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.